It's going?
Yeah, we're on. We're going to start on Daf Yud. Daf Yud Amud Aleph. I'm going to start from Tanan Hassam. You see that? It's, I guess, 7 lines down. There's a star on it. It was taught there, it was taught in the Mishnah in Trumas. Gimel mashkin asurin mishum gila. There's 3 liquids that there's a concern that a venomous creature would want to drink from it. Those 3 liquids are mayim, v'yayin, v'chalav. Water, wine, and milk. That means that if water, wine, and milk is left exposed overnight, we'll see how long, so then you shouldn't drink from it. The Gemara says, V'kami yeshuvi asurin. It said overnight, but really, how long should it be left out and it will be forbidden? So it says, K'dei sheyetzi harechash mimakam karav v'yishteh. So with the amount of time that a snake could creep out from something close by and drink from this liquid, there's a concern that while it's drinking from the liquid, it's putting in also a venom into the liquid. The kama makam karav, how close would be the makam karav? Am Rabbi Yitzchak Breder Rav Yehuda Kadesh Yaitze mitachas oizen keli v'yishteh. The amount of time that it would take to come out from the handle of the keli and drink. Now, where did I see that? It means from the ground underneath it. Okay, so 1 second. So the amount of time it takes to come out from the handle and to drink. So the Gemara says, Yishteh, hakachazile. What do you mean? If it comes out to drink, and that's the amount of time that it took, that it was exposed, and you're standing there because it was only exposed for that amount of time, so it comes out and it drinks, and you see it drinking. I don't need a halacha to tell me that if you see it drinking, that we're talking about when do I suspect that maybe a drink from it, and I didn't notice it. That's what I need a halacha for. So the Gemara says, what it means is an amount of time that it takes to drink, then to go back into its hole underneath the vessel or the handle, and so that amount of time, which seems to be very quick, that would be a problem. That would be a problem. Now they quote the Shulchan Aruch quotes this halacha, but the Shulchan Aruch says, "V'achshav shein nechashim b'neinu it's muter." Shulchan Aruch says that now we don't have snakes, so it's not a problem.
We have snakes, but we don't have snakes in our house.
Right.
I mean, outside, go lift over a large rock. Sometimes there's a snake under it.
Right.
Only in Florida,
Yeah.
not in Pennsylvania.
I found half a dozen snake eggs the other day under a rock.
Really. So, the only time that this would be relevant is for kiddush. If you have wine that's left over, because we said one of these is wine. So for kiddush, you don't make kiddush on wine that's left over, even though you could drink it, because now we're not concerned about venom. But you wouldn't make kiddush on wine that's exposed. Okay, Itmar. A statement from Amirayim. It's a very important. Like a shastra gets. Very important Gemara here. Hashechet besaken v'nimtzas peguma. So in shechts, he uses a knife, and afterwards he finds that the knife had a pegam and had a nick in the knife, and he already shechted. Before he shechted, it was fine. After he shechted, he checks it, and there's a problem. So we have to determine when did the problem take place. Is this animal that he just shechted kosher? Rav Huna. Rav Huna says, Afilu shiber ba'atzamis kol hayayim psula. Let's say after the shechita, the whole rest of the day he was there chopping bones with the knife. Before he chopped the bones, he did a shechita. Before he did the shechita, the knife was kosher. After he chops the bones, the knife is pasul. So Rav Huna says that I don't care that he chopped the bones afterwards. It's still possible that Chayshinan Shema Ba'ar Nifkama, that maybe while he was just starting the Shechita, it got a nick because of something that was on the skin on the neck, and the whole Shechita was possible. Rav Chizda Amar Ksheira. Rav Chizda says no, it's kosher. Shema Be'etzem Nifkama. Maybe it was the bones. We could say that, look, beforehand it was kosher. Afterwards he was chopping bones. It's probably the bones that made it, and you can eat the animal. It's major machlekes. Going to see later, it gets more serious. You know, the sheikhtim, they check the knife and they start shechting the chickens, and it's on like a conveyor belt, you know, and they stop every few hundred chickens or something to check the knife again. Can you imagine? According to Rav Huna, it's all puzzle. According to Rav Chizda, I don't know. We have to see. The Gemara after in the next when we turn the page is going to discuss it. But one of them is Rav Chizda is going to be very lenient. Rav Huna is going to be very strict about this.
The word be'etzem, I know it means bones. Isn't it also used like at the moment? Yeah. So can't you say there's two interpretations here? You could say, oh, it got puzzled by the bones, or got puzzled at that moment, but before that it wasn't puzzled.
Yeah, but the phrase was shiber ba'atzamish. He is breaking bones. So yesterday we learned that Rav Huna says that behema b'chaya b'cheskas isrei medas. An animal while it's alive has a cheskas isser until you know how it was shechted, and then once it's shechted, it has a cheskas heter until you know how it was nitrified. That's what we learned yesterday from Rav Huna. So we know what Rav Huna holds, that an animal has an assumption that it's not kosher until we know that it is kosher. That's what Rav Huna said yesterday. So Bishleim Rav Huna kishmaite. I understand why Rav Huna says this animal is not kosher, because he said that it's assumed that it's not kosher until we know that it is kosher. And here we're not sure what's going on with this knife. The knife could have been puzzle. So Rav Huna goes according to his logic of that it has a ches. What was his logic yesterday? Either it's also because of Aver Menachem according to Rashi, or it's also because of Eina Zavuach. It wasn't shechted, and which is a positive command to shecht. So it has this chazaka, this assumed status that it's not kosher until we know that it is. Ela Rav Chizda my time, but Rav Chizda that says that it's kosher. So what's his reason? So Amalach, he would say to you, etzem vade pagim, bones ruin knives, or safek pagim, safek lay pagim. Skin, that's a doubt. Could be it did, could be it didn't. Have a safek uvade. So I have a doubt, and I have a definite. Vein safek might me de vade. The doubtful skin is not going to take away from the definite bones, so the probability here is much larger that it's the bones. So we'll say that the animal that he shechted before he started cutting the bones was done with a proper knife. Masiv Rava l'siyua l'Rav Huna. Rav has a question in support of Rav Huna. I remember we had yesterday, apparently Rava was talking to Rav Huna. Did you notice that? Yesterday on the top of the page, we said, Amar lei Rava. I remember we had a Gemara that the Gemara says that Rav Huna passed away before Rav Yehuda. And Miyom Shemeis Rav Yehuda was Nailad Rava. It was impossible for Rava to speak to Rav Huna, and then we had to say that it was someone else. Anyway, here it seems to fit. Masav Rava l'siyuel Rav Huna, that it's not an actual conversation. Taval va'ala.
So that on top it's Rav Huna and Rava?
Well, I think the Amalei is the Rav Huna. Okay, and then what is the Amalei Rava? Maybe Amalei Rava is to Rav Abba, and Rav Abba was younger.
Says it.
Is that? Oh, that's excellent.
It says Rabbi.
That's excellent. That's excellent. Okay.
What
So-
was your final little?
No, he
conclusion?
changed the text. He had a different text. Amalei means he says to him. He says, he says,
Oh, it's
which
fine.
means that the
It's
person
a
wasn't
big
there.
one, right, yeah.
Okay.
This makes the match.
No, it throws off all your history. One little thing is like, it messes up everything I know. Okay, so if someone goes to the mikveh, then he comes out of the mikveh. V'nimtza lav davar chaitzitz. And he finds on him a chatzitza. Chatzitza means an interruption between him and the water. So he comes out and he finds that there's something on his skin, something in his teeth, something, there's something there. Even though afterwards he was involved in that substance after the mikveh. Be typical. So goes to the mikveh, they find a piece of popcorn in the teeth. So after the mikveh, he was eating popcorn, and he finds a piece in his teeth. So, but here it would probably the way it's written, the wording, it sounds like there's like ink or something, but ink wouldn't be a chatzitza. So a leaf.
A Band-Aid.
Yeah, it was something that could get on him. Let's say there was a piece of a leaf that was stuck on him. Maybe it was outside. After the mikveh, it was outside doing gardening, and he had some dirt or a leaf on him. So lo yasalei tefillah. Still, the mikveh is not good. It didn't help. Until he says definitely this was not here beforehand. But if there's a possibility that it was there before, then even though the probability is that it came afterwards, because after the mikveh he was busy in the garden, he was doing all of that, and he was involved with that. So even though the probability is that it came later, but unless he can say with certainty that it wasn't there before, the mikveh is not valid. What's the problem? Here, in this case, the guy that goes to the mikveh, he can't have an interruption between his skin and the water. It needs to be squeaky clean. So, devadai taval, he definitely went to the mikveh. What's the doubt? Safek have'ala, safek lo yave'ala. Maybe this dirt was on him, and maybe it wasn't on him.
He didn't take a shower before, right?
Right.
No,
A good shower.
no. This one's the.
Yeah.
Because then he would have said Barili.
Right.
What do we have here? We have definitely it would come later. We have a definite cause later. We have a possible cause earlier. We're saying that the mikveh is no good because the possible cause is going to determine more than the definite cause. That's a suffix. Maitzimi devadai.
I did protest it.
Oh, that turned out like that.
Getting sick.
That's, yeah. Now you'll be able to really compare. Okay, so this is a question on Rav Huna, this is a question on Rav Chisda, because Rav Chisda says that if I have a definite cause, I would say that I'll just look at the definite cause, like the bone, for example. He said the shechita was good because the bone caused the nick in the knife. But over here we have a proof that we don't look at the definite cause. We look at a probable cause, even though the definite cause is there. A possible cause, not a possible cause that it came beforehand. It's a suffix. Did it come beforehand or not? And we're going to say that the mikveh is no good. Gemara says
Tefillah is no good.
the tefillah. Thank you. Yeah, the immersion was no good. Shani Hassam. Gemara says there is different. We could say that the person was tamei. You're trying to change his status. You want to change his status. Over there, you need to have a definitely that it was good. You don't have a definite that it was good because it could be that the dirt was on him beforehand. The Gemara says 1 second. Hachanami hemed behem al chizkasa. That's no different than the case of Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda also is dealing with an animal, and he said the animal is kosher because I have a definite cause later, which is the banging of the knife on the bones. That would definitely make a nick. And he says, nevertheless, because of that, I don't say that it became treif earlier. But 1 second, the behema has a chazaka that it's not kosher, because while it's alive, it's not kosher. You're trying to change its assumed status. You need to have a real 100% certainty that the shechita was done properly. The Gemara says, 1 second. I already changed the status. It's been shechted. So here, it's a different story. I'm looking at an animal that's shechted. So the Gemara says, that's exactly the same by the mikveh. You have a person that went to the mikveh as well. You have a question: is the shechita good? Is the tefillah good? It's exactly the same. It's symmetrical when you line up all of the criteria, all of the details of the case. The Gemara says, 1 second, Isyalda Bareyasa. Over here, by the meat, by the animal, there's a reyasa. You see that it has a blemish in it. The Gemara says, Hachanami Isyalda Bareyasa. Over here also it has a blemish in it. What's the blemish? It has a problem. A reyasa, we said yesterday, was a problem. A problem that there's dirt on his skin. Maybe it's not good. So basically, it's exactly symmetrical. The two cases. Each one we're looking at now, there's a problem. In one of them, we said, according to Rav Chisda, that it was kosher. It's assumed to be kosher. And by the mikveh, we have a mishnah that says that it's not kosher, even though it's exactly the same, all the criteria is the same. The Gemara says, 1 second. The answer is that where's the problem when we're dealing with the animal that's shechted? The problem is not in the animal. The problem is sakin Yisroi. The knife has a problem. Behema lo Yisroi. The animal doesn't have a problem. The animal I look at, it just looks like a shechted animal. Here, I'm looking at, like you said correctly, doctor, I'm not looking at the mikveh. I'm looking at the person, and the person had a cheskas tumah. The person was tameh before. I'm trying to make him pure, and now you look at him, and there's a blotch of dirt on him. So maybe he's not really pure. Over there, by the case of the animal had a cheskas yisr. The animal wasn't kosher while it was alive. Now I'm looking at it. The animal is a shechted animal. I go to the knife. I look at the knife, and I see there's a problem on the knife. So on the knife, I have a question, but the animal is shechted. So it depends what I'm looking at. I'll make it easier for you. The Gemara over here isn't spelling it out. To make it easier, the Ran explains that the knife was kosher beforehand. The knife has a cheskas heter from before. That's the criteria that really makes it all make sense. The knife was assumed to be kosher. Now I have a problem on the knife, but I have an animal that's shechted. So together with an animal that's shechted, with a knife that had a chazaka that was supposed to be good, then fine. But over here, the mikveh was fine. I'm not discussing the mikveh. If I had a question on the mikveh, then that could have been something else. Taisvus, we'll discuss that on the next page. But over here, I have a person that was tamei, assumed to be tamei, as a chazaka that he's tamei. He goes to the mikveh, and there's a problem with him. But there's a problem on him. You see a blotch that maybe the mikveh was no good. So I have no way of establishing that he's changed his status. So it was thought to be a support to Rav Huna, but it's actually not a support. It doesn't prove anything because there's one difference, and that is the knife had a cheskas heter. The knife was kosher before you started shechting. Okay. Meisvei, where's the question? It quotes this source, which is referring to a bird. Now, the difference between when you shecht an animal, you have to shecht roiv of both pipes, the majority of both pipes, the trachea and the esophagus. On a bird, you only have to shecht one. So shachad esaveshet. If somehow he shechted the esophagus, not by inserting the knife in between, maybe you could push it to the side. You can, with his finger, you can push the esophagus to the side and he shechts it. So, because if you hide the knife, it's a problem. I don't know if it's possible on a bird. I guess if you have a thin knife, you can.
You could do a sharp nail if you're going.
in the temple only. So he shechts the esophagus, and afterwards the gargaris, the trachea, is dislocated. Ksheira, that's okay, because the shechita was done fine. Nishmata gargaris. Let's say that the trachea is like pulled out, it's dislocated. And then he shechts the veshet, so it's psula. That's not valid because the animal was treif. The animal was considered a treifa. They would do what's it called when they make a hole? Tracheostomy. So they would have to do something like that, or put it back in place. Doesn't say if it's pulled out from the top or from the bottom, but something. It was removed. It's detached from. So shachad esaveshet. Let's say he shechts the veshet. So we're setting up the case, and now we have the scenario that we're looking for. He shechts the veshet, v'nimtza hagarger shmuta, and he finds that the trachea is dislocated. Now, he doesn't know when it happened. Was it before the shechita? Was it after the shechita? Is this a kosher shechita? This was a story. Va'amru, and they said, Kol safek b'shchita pasal. Any doubt in shchita is pasal. Kol safek b'shchita lasuye mai. Whenever you use that word, any doubt that arises in shchita is invalid. What's it coming to include? Because he made a general rule, he must be including more scenarios than just the case that you're talking about. Lav lasuye, is it not to include ki agavna, the case that we're talking about, where you have a knife that you check it later, you see that it has a pagam, it has a nick in it. You don't know, was it before the shechita or was it after the shechita? So is this animal kosher? And we have they just gave a rule that it's invalid. So it's a kasha on Rav Chizda that says that it's valid. The Gemara says, like, that's not the scenario. That's not what it's coming to include. It's coming to include lasuyi safek shah, safek daras. It's coming to include if there was a doubt, if maybe there was a pause in the shechita, or maybe there was a chopping action in the shechita. That would be a problem. The Gemara asks, Sumaishna, what's the difference between what the doubt is? The Gemara says, Hasam, over there, is yalda bareya behema. There was a doubt in the animal. In other words, we have there's a problem in the animal because we see that the trachea is dislodged from the. What's the term that it uses?
Dislodged.
Dislodged. Yeah. All right. Hacha sakin Yisrael, behemala Yisrael. Over here, back to the same logic.
Same answer.
Same answer. That there's a question on the knife. And the knife, like we said before, has a cheskas heter, has a cheskas.
How would you ask the question that has the same answer?
That's a good question. There's two answers to that. There's a Rashi in Megillah. This is very balabatish. The yeshivas don't accept this. There's a Rashi in Megillah that says that sometimes the Gemara will say things even though it knows the answer, just because it wants to put it aside, just to get by it, to show that this is not a problem. It wants to spell it out, even though we already have a similar. But in the yeshivas, they would always say, "What didn't we know beforehand? How could this case possibly be different? There has to be something different." They spend a lot of time working on making this calculation of if we already had that answer, then the next question couldn't have known. Has to have known that answer, and has to have a new problem here. So
That sounds like the Rashi from Fins and Scales. It's a four fish that have scales automatically have fins. Why need both? And the answer is the Torah would be out there.
Yeah,
Sounds like the
right.
same thought.
Actually, I saw that the fins have, that there is one fish that has scales, but it doesn't have fins. And that's a fish that's not edible. So that's what it means. If there's no possibility to eat anything like that, so why do we have to discuss it? The Yagdal Torah B'Yada, we're discussing this fish even though no one will ever eat it because it's poisonous. Let's keep shot. Okay. The Hilchas HaKavasei de Rav Huna, Kishalei Shiba Be'etzim. The Gemara says the halach is like Rav Huna if we didn't break a bone afterwards. That means that if someone shechted and after the shechita he checks his knife and he sees that there's a nick in it, the shechita going back is no good. That animal that he shechted is no good. Rashi over here, it's unbelievable, Rashi that he does this. He says, Val Yadi HaYamaisa. You see that on the top? Rashi sounds like he shechted a chicken. And he says that he checked his knife afterwards, it wasn't good. And his teacher, Rabbi Yaakov Bar Yaakov, told him that it's forbidden. It was a bird. So, it's in the biographies of Rashi, they don't put in that Rashi was shechting birds. He was making wine, but here we have have more to add to his life story. Okay. The Hilchas HaKavasei de Rav Chisda Kishishiba Be'etzim. And the halacha is like Rav Chisda, if afterwards he was breaking bones, then we'll say that the animal is kosher. Why? Because we'll say that we have a vadai cause, we have a definite cause for the nick in the knife, that's the bones. So we'll say that was the cause. And the birds or the animals beforehand that you shechted, we'll say that's kosher. Now, the fact that it says that the halacha is like Rav Chisda in cases when he was breaking bones afterwards, that tells me that we're paskening like him only in a specific case, but he would have said it in more cases. That we never heard before. Michlal, this implies that Rav Chisda himself would say that Afal Gav D'Lei Shiber B'Etzim, even if he did not break a bone, nevertheless the bird is kosher, or the animal is kosher. And now he checks his knife after the shechita, and the knife is no good, and we're going to say that the shechita was kosher. How is it kosher? El b'ma yifkam. What afterwards did he do that caused it to get a nick on it? Ema be'etzem de mefarekas ifkim. Could be that in the back of the neck, like the spine, when it reached the spine, it got a nick over there, and over there it was already kosher because he already finished the shechita. Okay. Haviyuvda, there was a case.
Chicken, there's no mafrekas, is it?
There has to be some neck. There has to be a bone there, right?
So it could also be.
Could be also that.
You never eat the neck of the chicken. Some people love the neck, the gurgle.
Haviyuvda v'taraf Rav Yosef ad pleiser chiyusa. There was a story with Rabbi Yosef made it usher up until 13 animals. That means that they found the knife was no good after the shechita. They went back, they said the last 13 animals were no good. Now it's unclear if all he shechted was 13, or was there more than that? Why is this 13? And was there,
Since
what's he doing?
He checked.
Come on, who is this according to? Is it Rav Huna? Is it going to according to Rav Huna? Va'afilu b'kamaisa, and all there were 13 animals, and all 13 animals are treif. Even the first one that he shechted. The Gemara says, "Loi, not necessarily did Rav Yosef paskin like that. Could be Rav Chisda ulabar mikamaisa." And where did the knife become treif? As he finished become puzzle. As he finished the first shechita, it gets a nick in the neck of the first one, which means there were really 14 animals. The first one is kosher, and the last 13 are no good. It doesn't tell us this. So the Gemara says, no, could be that it was really, the first one was actually valid, and we're going with Rav Chisda.
And then he got it on the, like you said before.
He got it on the back of the neck, right?
On the mafrek.
And v'iba yasema, if you want, we could say I could say Liyolam Rav Huna. It has to be Rav Huna. Why? The Ikar Rav Chisda, because if it's like Rav Chisda, Michti. Let's see. Mitla Talinan. We're making the animals kosher according to Rav Chisda. Why? Because we're going to say that it came at a later cause. Mimai de be'atzim de mefarekes de kamai sifkim. What's compelling you to say that it was the mefarekes, the neck of the first animal? Dilma be'atzim de mefarekes de basraisa. Ifkim. Maybe it was the neck of the last animal that it got the nick. In other words, Rav Chisda was taking very serious the kashrus of the knife, that the knife is kosher until we know that it's not. Where did it become non-kosher? Well, it could have been anywhere in there, but it has a chazaka that it was kosher. So we'll just say that it was the last one, that and they're all kosher.
It has to be like Rav
So it must be Rav Huna, which would, according to Rav Huna, even the first one isn't kosher, because if it would be Rav Chisda, then you wouldn't have 13 not kosher. You would have only, you wouldn't even have one that's not kosher. You would say it was the end of the last one. Okay. Amar le Ravacha brei de Rava le Ravashi. Ravacha, the son of Rabbi, says to Ravashi, Rav Kana matzrich b'dikusa ben kol chada v'chada. Rav Kana says you have to check the knife in between every shchita. Come on, who does he hold like? Rav Huna. He's going like Rav Huna. Ulamifsal kamaisa. Why? Because he wants to know, was the thing that you shechted kosher? Because we're going to go back retroactively and we're going to say that what you did, what the sheichet did was no good. The shechita was no good. The Gemara says, like, not necessarily. Could be Rav Chisda ula achshure basraisa. He wants to make sure that the one afterwards is kosher. Now, you see, we had two ways here. We had two ways of viewing Rav Chisda. One way of viewing Rav Chisda was we had a Iba Yisema, right? That the first animal was kosher, but the last 13 were no good. Why? Because at the end of the first one, it was no good. Or we could have said, according to Rav Chisda, that it came from the last one and they're all kosher. Rashi points out, when the Gemara says over here, like Rav Chisda, we're not accepting the Iba Yisema. And so therefore, it's actually, once I have the first one, it could be it became pogum from the neck of the first one. And really, if I don't do the checking it, I will make the second one treif. I will consider the second one treif, because I'll say that it became pogum from the first one. The Gemara has, the Rashi says, afagav de mashanina, even though